Hello everyone and welcome to the next Alternative Proteins video from Mills & Reeve. I'm Katrina Anderson, Principal Associate here, heading up the regulatory team, and I'm here with James.
Thanks for inviting me, Katrina. So I'm James Fry. I head the life sciences practice at the firm, and I'm specifically an IP and patents lawyer within the life sciences space. So advising clients around the use of technologies and the development of new products and technologies, and advise them around the sort of IP strategy and IP risks in that regard.
Thanks, James. And one of the reasons I'm here with James today is because one of the areas, not just in the UK but globally, that we're seeing real movement in the alternative proteins food and feed space from a legislative point of view is around effectively the deregulation of gene editing. And that opens up lots of interesting commercial opportunities to bring foods to market, normally plant-based foods in the main, but there's potential for animals in the future. But those opportunities can only be effectively commercialised by the use of IP. And this brings us to this very interesting question about the CRISPR patent wars.
Absolutely.
James, tell us about the CRISPR patent wars.
So these patents focus around some foundational gene editing technology, which is all around the use of specific proteins, specifically what's known as this Cas9 protein, which effectively allows you to sort of snip away at sequences and create very, very specific and targeted products. So that technology was developed back in the early 2010s. The first patent was filed in the US by the Broad Institute, and around the same time you had similar technology being developed by two Noblists around the CVC group in Europe, and they obviously filed their patents as well. So what you've effectively got is you've got priority in relation to the patent space for the Broad Institute in the US, and priority in Europe for the CVC group. There's a lot more sort of complexities around that, but it does sort of underline that need really to sort of understand the patent landscape and the licensing models around a lot of this technology.
And what does that mean if you are an alternative feed or food protein startup? What should you be thinking about when you're choosing or thinking about patent licenses for CRISPR technology?
So there's probably a number of things to think about there, Katrina. I suppose what I should probably also sort of say is actually there's tons of other players within this space. When I last counted, there were over sort of 11,000 patent families in the space, so it is pretty crowded. So number one, what does that mean? It means trying to understand what that licensing model looks like, approaching the right companies with the right licenses around a lot of these patented technologies. Given that you've got this sort of priority sort of sitting with different third parties across different jurisdictions as well, is there a strategy in terms of taking licenses from each group? So you're sort of backing both horses. It will depend on the importance of the technology within your business, because I suppose that leads on to another thing, because if you're early stage, there's various defences and exemptions to patent infringement for research use only. So it may find actually in terms of all that early stage stuff, you can actually do quite a bit of that. And obviously what the patent will then prevent you from doing is commercialising.
Yes.
The other thing to think about is, are there any alternative technologies out there? I mentioned Cas9, but there are other proteins which focus around gene editing techniques, so Cas12a, other technologies coming to market as well. And then it's thinking around keeping a beady eye on what's going on in terms from a global perspective. Everyone has thought for some time that actually CVC and Broad will get together and settle this. So there will be
Yes.
sort of a patent pooling scenario.
Mm.
And the final thing to think about is your contractual protection in terms of
Okay.
the licenses you're taking in. Going to get more favourable terms from some licensors over others, protection around non-infringement, etc. So sort of a bundle of things you can probably give some thought to.
And I think also, just from a regulatory point of view, while there is a global trend to deregulating, it's not happening universally and consistently. So when you're thinking about patent licenses for different jurisdictions, what's best, you might also want to think about the regulatory overlay. For example, we know that gene editing is going to be deregulated, at least for plants in the UK, over the sort of 2025. At the same time, in the context of food, the EU has proposals, but they are effectively stalled. And it's worth mentioning that at least some EU institutions, such as the Parliament, want that to involve some bans on patents in this space. So it's a complex situation, and you really need to look at the IP and the regulatory together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, James.